So good morning and welcome to our Mosaic and our continued study of Genesis. We've been off for several weeks from this, and we ended last time we were together at at Genesis 8. We basically did Genesis 8 if I remember right, but I'm just going to, this last little bit, they've just come off the ark, and this is kind of what happens as soon as they come off. And there's 4 slides here. I'm going to have one of you read this one and then the next 3 in Genesis 9. I just realized there's spacing issues, I can tell, but I switched from an Apple to a PC and it jockeyed stuff, so anyway, it'll be fine. It's legible. All right, so if somebody would like to read these 4 slides for us.
Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I give you the green plants, I give you everything. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. And for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and from man. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning for the life of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. And you be fruitful and multiply, increase greatly on the earth and multiply in it. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, Behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. It is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I shall see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth.
Quite a bit of that is obviously repeated multiple times about this covenant. It starts back in chapter 8 and kind of walks through up to this verse 17 here. So now let's kind of work our way through Genesis 9. I think this is the first time it says, and God blessed Noah and his sons. My point is he's talking to always Noah. All of a sudden here, and said to them. So the 3 sons are hearing from God. I think that's the first time that may have occurred. So they've been working based on what Dad has understood, and now all of a sudden they're coming off the boat, and God says to basically all of them, or at least Noah and his sons. It doesn't say in their wives, but we might think that they're there and hearing this as well. And what does he say to them? Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. So the first question there on your sheet is, what is significant about, I'm beginning to wonder if all the corrections that I've made are not showing up, because this slide is incorrect as well, so we'll see. I may have half a lesson here, I don't know. I'm having computer issues, it's driving me crazy. So, what is significant about the blessing, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth? What is significant about that? Just before I keep going, what would you say is significant about that?
Since every human just got destroyed except them, it takes a lot of faith to follow that.
That would be something, yeah.
They were to spread out on the earth, not stay together,
Yeah.
and be fruitful, to have children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So, if this seems familiar, it's because back in Genesis chapter 1, and God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And this is to Adam and Eve. It's literally the original, I think we call it the Adamic mandate, that they are to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. And they start with 2 people, and they're supposed to fill the entire earth with people. God has just wiped out humanity, short of these 8, and where do we go? Exactly back to where we started. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. Job hasn't changed, that's still the plan. No, let's do that. So that would be the first thing. That's what it looks like here. Interestingly too, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, have dominion over fish, birds, heaven, right? Birds of the heaven, all the moving things. That's Adam. Now when we get to this section here, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, right? But then it's, the fear and dread of you shall be on all the animals. It ties this filling the earth with having dominion over the animals in both cases. The first one talks about specifically ruling over and having dominion over. This just says they're going to now fear you. Why? Because you are going to have dominion over them, but I'm also going to now give them to you for food. Now we think they may have eaten animals prior to the flood, but this is the first time God has said, go eat animals. So we don't know if they did that before that or not. I mean, if you're killing everybody, eating meat is not that's a minor jump, right? So you think they probably had done that, but this is the first time it's been made lawful by God. Go ahead.
If they had to sacrifice the lambs right back to Adam and Eve,
Yeah.
they have probably eaten the meat.
Well, they were only told to eat the green grass or the green plants at the time, and if they're burning the offering, they may have burned it till it was gone. You know, I don't know, or buried it. You know, whatever. I mean, this, and we'll see that part of it more when we get to it. Let me go back and now answer this question. What is the significance about the blessing? Well, the significance is it is a repeat of the blessing, and it is a blessing. It's a mandate, but it's a blessed mandate, blessing that was given to Adam and Eve. So that's the first thing. Second, family is a blessing from God. Now, is everybody's family a blessing? Right? No. Marriage is a blessing. Is everybody's marriage a blessing? No. Why? Well, because there's sinful people involved. That doesn't mean family isn't a blessing. It just means we don't get that right sometimes. And when we don't, it becomes a non-blessing. But that's because of our sin, not because of the bad design. The point of that is, this is not a blessing given to followers of God. This is every human being is being given the blessing of being fruitful and multiplying. It's like rain. It falls on the just and the unjust. Now, in this case, the unjust may abuse that blessing and have a disaster of a family that brings them far more heartache than, blessing. That's possible. And obviously that can happen even with those of us who are following God, because we're sinful and we don't always make good decisions. And this is the piece, though, I want to make sure that we see. I think this is huge, and I don't think that we think about this very often. God clearly, I say clearly because this is twice, two different instances, the founding of the world, so to speak, and then the refounding of the world. What's your job? Fruitful, multiply, fill the earth with people. Obviously, that's a big deal, right? So clearly, God wants the earth full of image bearers. Now, how full is too full? Well, God will determine that, and He will put the brakes on it when it gets too full. Is it our job to say, okay, that's full enough? No, I'm not smart enough to know when that is, right? Our job is to fill the earth as human beings, as image bearers. Fill the earth with other image bearers. So, how is the enemy currently, just think about the world in which we live, working to stop us from fulfilling that mandate?
Abortion.
Okay? How is the Lord, or how is not Lord, sorry. How is the enemy?
The policy to pay single mothers money if they don't have a husband, that encourages, just to have kids for money, and then,
Right.
dad around and there's less kids.
Less obvious probably, but yes, because in a way it's like, well, that's going to produce all kinds of kids, because you're getting paid to have them. That's filling the earth, but it's filling the world with kids that don't have dads and end up in prison and all this, which is destructive. So that's, one I hadn't thought of, but could be. What else?
The whole climate thing where they're basically saying we have too many people now and implementing all kinds of things to reduce the population. What is it when you can be killed because you have
Assisted suicide,
assisted suicide and
those kind of things.
all that, and the globalists that are trying to reduce.
If you're not tracking with what's happening like in Europe, to save the climate, they're putting all kinds of restrictions on farming. So like in the Netherlands, they are a massive producer of food. I mean, they produce an enormous amount of food. And they have so changed the laws on farming, they may not even be able to feed themselves, let alone half of Europe the way they have been. Because we have to save the planet from carbon dioxide and poison gas and all these other things, okay? So what does that do when there's not enough food? That's the objective there, right? Now, you can say, well, that's not really what they're trying to do. They're just trying to say, okay, but when you exhale, you're exhaling poison gas, according to their theory, carbon dioxide, right? That's back to science class when you were little. You exhale carbon dioxide, you inhale oxygen. You are a walking polluter, and therefore, one of the reasons you want to limit food supply is you have less people polluting.
That makes no sense, because it takes us for the environment, for the trees and stuff.
Well,
My class from science.
yes, we produce oxygen, but other things, I mean, there's other ways for oxygen, because obviously when it was just Adam and Eve, the trees were doing fine. And their point would be, if we could just get down to a few 100 million people, this place would be awesome. It literally is the objective there. Well, let me show you this. Abortion, assisted suicide, war, that's another. Birth control, don't think about that one as often, right? Families of 10, 12 kids, common. Families of 1, 2 kids, common. What's different? That. I don't know if you've tracked this. they're called, I can't remember, I think it's not reproductive rate or population rate, I can't remember. It has to be at like 2.1 or 2.2 in a society to not lose people. If you end up with like 1.7 people, like replacement rate, you're actually not growing as a society. There's nowhere left in the Western world that is at 2.1. All of Europe, America, Canada, everywhere is less than replacement rate. We are going to be shrinking as population. And there are some of those where when you get it too far off, you can't bring it back. So the objectives are working, is the point. I added efforts to stop overpopulation, climate change policies. Again, you can say, Chris, why are you being political? I'm not being political. I'm reading Genesis chapter 9 and chapter 1, and I'm all of a sudden going, no, wait a minute. This is literally, specifically, a direct attack against God's original mandate to humanity. I've never thought of that like that before. Have you ever connected climate change policy on the evening news when you're watching them, to Genesis 9 or Genesis 1? I never thought of that, but it's clearly what is happening there. Talking about the animals, the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every bird of the heavens, and upon everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. This is, why would there be fear? They've just spent this year on the ark with all these animals, and apparently this wasn't there prior to that. So why is that now being done? It's because into your hands they are delivered. They've been if you've ever remember back in, if you went to a rural school and they had 4-H, they had a thing called animal husbandry, and it was a class, and it wasn't, strange. That's the terminology used for raising livestock. Animal husbandry. Why they use that expression, I don't know. The point is, they'd been doing animal husbandry all along, of raising livestock, but now all of a sudden, in other words, that's the subdue over and have dominion over the animals. That's farming. This is killing and eating. So I don't know what exactly they were doing with the animals prior to that. I mean, potentially, leather or fur or whatever, don't know, maybe eating eggs, drinking milk, whatever. But now it's, okay, now these animals are going to be food for you. And we know that that's what it means, because he says this, every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. Just to clarify, when I say hand them over to your hand, I mean you're going to start eating all this stuff. It doesn't say eat clean animals. It says eat everything. You can eat everything. Nothing's safe. You can eat it all. Now, there may be some things they shouldn't eat, and they figure that out, like when the vulture's got his, as we, snout deep into things that you don't want to eat. Maybe you don't want to eat the vulture, right? And they eventually figure some of that stuff out. But yeah, you can eat anything. Just go ahead and eat it all.
Yeah, but we don't know what happened with the animals on the ark, if Noah and them ate some of them off the ark either.
I don't think they did. Number one, because they were two of everything, and if you eat one, that one dies out because there's no mate. They had 7 of the clean, but they needed those for sacrifice and things like after. They weren't told they were allowed to eat them, and they were pretty specific of doing what they'd been told, so I don't think they would have eaten them. And this is the first time God has ever told them it's okay to eat these things. So prior to this, there's no reason to think that people were eating animals that were trying to follow God. They may have been the people who didn't care what God had to say on the matter. But if you're a righteous person, you're trying to follow God's rules, I don't think they would have been eating animals up until this point.
Do you know what the reason for, that's a pretty big change. I mean, why he?
Why he's gonna let them start doing that now?
What would be the purpose of that, or?
Yeah. I think that in part, this goes back to the, prior to the flood, the world is entirely different in terms of ecologically. You know, you've got mammoths full of vegetation up in the tundra, right? The flood has just occurred. We're now gonna have this environment. There aren't anywhere near enough plants to feed 8 billion people now. There would have been maybe back then, but not now. So now that we're moving from a terrarium, you know, lots of vegetation for everybody to eat, we're gonna now allow you to eat meat and vegetation. Could be it, I don't know. We're not told why, that's my speculation.
Yeah, but the practical thing is, when they get off the boat, they can't go eating them, because then they
Yeah.
let them reproduce and multiply, all the animals.
Yeah. But certain things like rabbits, I mean, they could have been eating rabbits pretty quickly because they multiply pretty fast.
Yeah, good.
Cattle, I mean, you could, within a year or so, you could have enough cattle to, right? So, go ahead.
Well, one of the important things we need to eat is protein. And if your protein has been depleted in the plant life, then the only other source of protein
Right.
is animal protein.
Right.
They're already getting some protein from eggs. I'm presuming they were still allowed to eat the eggs.
I would have thought,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
But definitely after God gave this command, they definitely now could eat eggs along with,
yeah.
so they're going to get that protein, because they didn't need that before, no.
Well, they would have between leaving the garden and the flood, because you've got post-sin, you know, post-fall and pre-flood. But, you know, there are vegetarians that are semi-healthy. They struggle with that because of not being able to get some of the things that, but, so this could have just been God's plan of, here's the other thing, when you look at like the teeth of human beings, we have the teeth of omnivores. We don't have the teeth of carnivores or of a vegetarian, or, you know, just vegetative eaters. Like cows, you know, what is it, 5 stomachs or whatever, and their teeth are totally different. But we have so it's like God made us with this intent, but doesn't implement it till here. So I don't think this surprised him. Obviously, he knew what he was doing here. But then he says this, and as I gave you green plants, I give you everything. So he's referencing back. I used to say just do plants. That's all I had given you to eat. Now I'm saying it's okay, you can eat everything. So he does kind of make that connection. There's this transition here. But then he clarifies, you shall not eat flesh with its life. Now if you just pause there, he's saying don't eat it with its life. Now that could obviously be you catch a fish and, you know, don't do that. Don't eat it while it's still, you know, wiggling around. That could be what it means. But he's clarifying that's not what I mean. That is, its blood. Don't eat it with its blood, or with the blood still in it, or things of that nature. Which is interesting at this point, like you've heard of, you know, George Washington having leeches put on him because bloodletting was good for curing disease, right? Really? We knew this far back that life is in the blood, and in the 1700s they hadn't figured out that life is in the blood. The Bible isn't a science book, but when it gets close to science, it's accurate, is the point. Yes, we now know that's a true statement. Life, that is, it's blood. Blood is needed for life. If you don't have blood, there's no life. So he's saying don't eat it with its life, clarifying with blood. And there are reasons for that that would be, you know, some of those maybe health related. Some of that is he's simply having them not, this is less, it's more civilized or whatever. He's trying to move them in the direction of don't just grab a fish and eat it. but actually remove its blood, take off the meat. And he's prompting them to do it in that way.
So that means only well done?
No, I don't think it means that. You're okay with sushi, just not. There is a thing, and I was listening to a message from MacArthur, and he talked about he was somewhere, and they asked him if he wanted such and such. I don't remember what it was, and it was this thin, flat, black, like a pancake type looking thing, and they asked him if he wanted it, and he said sure, and it was awful. He said, he didn't like, what in the world? Oh, it's blood. They literally pour out the blood in a skillet and cook it in
Black pudding.
black pudding. There you go.
Oh.
You want some black pudding? That's what it was. Yeah.
We've eaten.
Okay. Yeah. No. That's fine. So, don't do that. As according to this. Okay. Now, this is interesting because that's up to this point. He's just unveiling this food thing, right? And then he says this, and for your lifeblood, I will require a reckoning. This is like changing gears. Like you can put parenthetical statement or parenthesis. Let me tell you something else that's kind of unrelated to what we're talking about. And for your lifeblood, I will require a reckoning. So my question is, why does God require a reckoning for the lifeblood of humans and not for animals? What am I saying? I'm saying he's literally just told them to kill and eat, but if anybody kills a human being, there will be a reckoning. Do you see how those, I mean, they're together. There's a kill animals, don't kill people. They're right up against each other, which is somewhat unusual. For every beast I will require it, and from man. So if a beast an ox gores somebody, the ox has to be killed. If a dog attacks someone and the person dies, the dog has to be killed. Anybody, anything that kills a human being has to be killed. If a person kills someone, you have to be killed. Now, is that talking about an accident? No, it's not talking about that. From his fellow man, I will require a reckoning for the life of man. So what is this saying? This is saying if someone murders, there's a distinction made in the rest of the scriptures. If someone murders someone, his fellow man is to kill the murderer. That is being established here. Now, what's interesting is if you remember back prior to the flood, Cain killed Abel. What does God do to Cain? He curses him and makes sure that no one kills him. He puts a mark on him. If anybody kills Cain, vengeance on him sevenfold. So God is protecting the murderer, and now he's shifting and saying, if anybody kills somebody, you guys have to kill that person. I think there's a direct connection here between what we saw right prior to the flood. There was violence constantly. Like there was no death penalty prior to the flood, and they're just killing each other all over the place. Right? So this is God's way of saying, okay, we're going to put the brakes on that this time. From here going forward, if man kills someone else, if there's a murder occurs, you have to kill that person. And this is where that is instituted. It is not in the Mosaic law. It is here. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man his blood be shed. So it's like, if you missed what I'm saying, let me clarify it, I'll restate it. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. You have to kill the murderer. And here is why. For God made man in his own image. What you are doing when you murder someone is you are violating God by killing his image. You are murdering an image of God. When you kill a cow, you're not destroying the image of God. When you kill a man, you are destroying the image of God. And for that, the only just punishment is for you to lose your life. So to the answer to the why is there a reckoning for the lifeblood of humans and not for animals, because we're his image bearers and they're not. So you think about PETA, right? These people for the ethical treatment of animals. Should we treat animals ethically? Absolutely we should. But their argument is, a cat is a dog, is a cow, is a horse, is a boy. I mean, they're all the same. If you kill a dog, it's like murder. I mean, it's just, they are just as equal in value as we are. We are a simply higher evolved animal. All this, you think in India where there's people starving to death, but they can't kill cows because they're the reincarnation of their great grandmother or something, you know what I mean? All these things are twists on this of trying to elevate animals to a position that they shouldn't be in, and demoting people to a position we shouldn't be in. We are his image bearers. So then he states it again, and you be fruitful, multiply, increase greatly on the earth, and multiply in it. Like, lest you missed it, let me make sure this is clear. I want you to fill this place up with image bearers. Increase greatly on the earth, multiply in it. Really, this is a big deal. I want you to fill the earth with image bearers. And if anybody kills one of the image bearers, they have to be killed. This is a very important thing. I want you to do this. This is your new mandate. And go do this. So, what's one other way the enemy is currently working to stop us from fulfilling that mandate? Is an anti-capital punishment efforts. It's a direct violation of God's mandates to do that. Now, you'd think, I had a guy that was, I know him through insurance, and this was during the political season, and the idea of pro-life came up, and his comment was, "Oh, so you're saying you're against capital punishment?" I'm like, "No, I'm not against capital punishment because I'm pro-life." And he's like, "Well, that doesn't even make sense. If you're for life, you're supposed to be for all life." I am for all life. I'm for all life. You shouldn't kill old people because they're inconvenient. You shouldn't kill poor people because they're inconvenient. You shouldn't kill certain races of people because they're not as good as you. You shouldn't kill unborn children because they're inconvenient to the parent or because they have an illness or a disease. I'm completely pro-life. So much so that if anybody takes the life of one of those image bearers, their life is forfeit. That's how high I value life. That doesn't connect with him, because he's thinking, but you have to protect the life of the evil. I mean, that just only makes sense, Now, having said that, if you want to look at statistics of who capital punishment is used against in our society, can you make a claim that it's disproportionately used against poor or poor men of color against, say, a wealthy white kid with some good connections? He's unlikely to get death penalty. This guy is, right? Absolutely. You could probably make that statistical. Does that invalidate the death penalty? No, it invalidates the justice system that's corrupt. You see what I'm saying? I'm saying because you can make that case, it doesn't, your solution isn't, so let's stop using the death penalty. No, you fix the system. You don't throw out the solution that God has given us. One of these messages too, somebody said, they say that the death penalty isn't a deterrent against crime. And you know what they mean is that when in the states where they do it, there's just as much crime, so see, it doesn't scare people into not doing it. The person I was listening to said, of course it's a deterrent. Dead people can't kill anybody. So, sure it is. How many people have killed more than once? Quite a few. So if you kill them after the first one, they're not killing anybody else. So, All right, and this is the part that got messed up by my formatting, so I apologize for the wonky stuff there. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him. So again, God's talking to Noah and his sons. Behold, I established my covenant with you and your offspring after you. So this is one of these, it's the only covenant I'm aware of that is kind of universal. It's in other words, the Mosaic covenant is with the people of Israel. The new covenant is for those that are saved. There's different covenants within the scriptures. This one is every human being from here forward. So this is what this covenant is between God and humanity and all living creatures. It's everything that has breath on the earth is who's being included in this. And with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark, it is for every beast of the earth. And what does he do? I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. God is giving a solemn oath. I will never do this again. I will never wipe out everything again with water. The caveat is he will do it with fire, but not water. So why is that relevant? I mentioned it a while back. There is a growing kind of body of evidence and things that there is a magnetic shift happening on the earth, and there's quite a bit of evidence demonstrating that over time, as that has occurred in the past, it has caused the earth to do some kind of a weird rotation thing. And when that happens, that's what the people, the scientists that look at this, they're saying the last time that occurred is what we see if we look at the flood. That's what caused the flood. Okay, I don't know. Maybe that's part of what's happened there. I don't know. We know why it happened because God sent the flood. But the point is, we're coming due for that to happen again. But it's not going to, because it'll never happen again. You see what I mean? So I can watch those guys and listen. It's kind of fascinating, but I'm not worried about it because God has specifically said, I will not do that again. So there's no concern with that happening again. Okay, last section. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. And this is really just a repeat of kind of what he's already said. He adds this is the symbol to remind you of that. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. The earth meaning everything that's on the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. Then when the bow is in the clouds, I will see and remember the everlasting covenant between me and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. So the reason we're blowing through this pretty fast is it's the same thing. It's kind of just very repetitive. So the point of the repetitive nature of this, God is being very clear, this is not going to happen again. I'm not ever going to flood the world again and kill everything. And not only am I never going to do that, I'm going to give you and God, he doesn't need a reminder, but he's saying, I will remember, meaning it will be reinforced. They're going to do that. And here's my symbol of that. Now, what is interesting is, as the enemy always does, he corrupts. And of course, he has corrupted that symbol, right? But this is the original meaning of that symbol. which is why the enemy, the reason I've started using the enemy instead of a name for him is I get tired of fighting my spell checker. The other reason is, if you don't know what I'm talking about, every time I type Satan, it tries to capitalize it, and I have to go back and decapitalize it. Just, it's a thing I try to do. So I get tired of fighting the spell checker. The other reason is the enemy, and I'll use this expression, and I want to use this more, and I want to make sure everybody knows what I'm saying. The spirit of the age. The spirit of the age is a way of saying, right now, in the age that we're in, dominant thought is controlled by a spirit. That spirit would be the enemy, or Satan. And that's always been true. He has always dominated the men of this earth and the structures of leadership of this earth. We found that when we were going through the Revelation series, and there's the 7-headed dragon with 10 horns, and remember that? And in one of those, there's crowns on the heads. Those heads are empires, and Satan is representative of the crown. He's ruling these 7 empires. They are doing his work. When you get to the very end, there are 10 horns. Those 10 horns represent kings, and they're kings without kingdoms. Well, you can't be a king if you don't have a kingdom. So what is that saying? It's saying people that exert the kind of influence that a king has, but he's doing it without being an actual king of a nation. I think Mark brought this up either in here or to me privately a while back, and it was astute. Who would the 10 kings be these days? I don't think it's the King of England. So I just heard this yesterday or this morning, they all run together. If there was an explosion on the space station right now, and we needed to go rescue astronauts, and we've got, a week to get there, who are they gonna call? It's not Ghostbusters, if that's just popped in your head, no. It's Elon Musk. He's the only guy that can get there. He's not a king, but he's a king. I think that very likely could be the 10 kings at the end. They're kings, but they don't have kingdoms. They don't have countries. They just rule the way kings did. Elon Musk is in everything, right? Is he one of those potentially, not him specifically, although it could be him specifically that's one of the 10. But I'm just saying we're moving in a direction where nations have less influence and uber billionaires have more influence than nations do. So I think that's what that is. Now, so who's running the 10 kings? Well, according to Revelation, Satan. The crowns move from the nation heads to the people heads of the 7 heads and the 10 horns. It's described twice, and the crowns move, and that's what that is. I see you. I'm getting there. I just wanted to finish my thought before I forgot it. Go ahead.
What's it even? Sports figures and music.
Yes.
They are exerting
An enormous
a
amount
lot
of influence.
Yes. So they could also be.
Yes. And that, is anybody betting against the dominant, what's the word I just used? Spirit of the age choice for Super Bowl winners? Yeah. Again, spirit of the age gets what it wants. Why? Because it can pull all the strings that it needs to get happen what it wants.
United Nations?
Would that be one of the 10, you think? Potentially, but they're like, it's like Barney Fife, I don't know that. I would be more along the line of thinking Jeff Bezos and, Elon Musk and whoever owns. Do what? Klaus Schwab. It's these people that you may have heard the name, and they run things that are enormously impactful to society, but they don't have any accountability to anybody. If you control, do what? Yeah, George Soros or his son. The nice thing about George Soros, and I don't take this wrong, he's a bad guy. You know, if you're not familiar with him, he's Jewish and he helped the Nazis find the other Jews. I mean, he's not a good guy. That's how he initially gained his wealth. And then he has used that wealth to become a multi-billionaire and has crashed economies like on purpose to make money and just all kind of horrible human being. But he has a son who's worse than he is and is very young. So the kind of the good thing is he's only got so much life left. You know, when he comes to his end, he stops doing damage, except for the fact that he's figured out a way to keep going, you know, through his son. So I don't know who these 10 guys are. I'm not specifically citing those men as the 10. I'm saying it more likely would be someone like that. All right. God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and you and all the flesh of the earth." So I'll just end this way. We have some time, which was good. I was hoping to make it short enough we would. So what is your main takeaway? We talked about a lot. There isn't a right answer, but like, what struck you as interesting or wow, whatever? What's your main takeaway from what we've seen this morning?
Well, the first thing, how many years did we determine it was from Adam and Eve to the flood? Was it 6,000?
1600-ish.
1,600?
Yeah. From Adam and Eve to the flood?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in only 1,600 years,
1600, yeah.
the earth was populated.
Dramatically, yeah.
I find that unbelievably incredible.
It is incredible, but not unbelievable. And the reason,
Mathematically, it's easy.
yeah, mathematically it would be simple because, number one, they're genetically perfect at that early stage. They haven't had all the corruption of genetics. Their lifespans are almost 1,000 years. You could, I mean, every female could have 50 kids or 100 kids or whatever, and that wouldn't be stress on the body because you could do it once every 5 years. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's just the lifespan is so, you know, when women today have a 20-year or 25-year maybe window-ish, what if you took that times 4 and they had a 100-year window?
No, thank you.
Not yeah, not to mention, but again, you know, your childbearing years are from 200 to 400, but you're gonna live to 1,000. So I mean,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. People aren't dying. You know what I mean? Like the population growth slows because people are born, die every 30, 40, 50 years for much of history because they didn't have a very long lifespan because of illness. Everybody that's born from Adam and Eve are still around 800 years later. And all their kids are still around 900 years later. And all their kids are around 1,000 years later. And it's like, this thing could just absolutely explode geometric proportion to this just enormous number. We don't know the number because they're killing each other like crazy. So, you know what I mean? The violence on the earth had gotten so bad, maybe there was only 2 million people left, who knows? But mathematically it could have been 7 or 8 billion. Pretty wild. Go ahead.
I guess one of the takeaways I get is the unchanging nature and purpose God had for man.
Yeah,
He said, no, this
Yeah.
is what I want you to do way back in
yeah,
Genesis
Genesis 1.
And he repeats it.
He goes through all this and he's right back to where he
But,
started.
no, his purposes have not changed, and his promises haven't changed.
Yeah,
His desire is for us
yeah,
to enjoy life with him.
yeah.
Created us for fellowship, and it's repeated.
It's an amazing thing. I mentioned earlier about, you know, marriage is a blessing from God. If, as a husband, I live my life with the intention of helping Brenda have the best life she can have, that doesn't leave me with much satisfaction for me left because I'm spending all my time worried about her, right? But if she spends her whole life working for my satisfaction, it doesn't leave her much time left to worry about her, right? But what happens? You end up with two incredibly joyful, satisfied people because somebody else is worried about that for you. Now that's perfect, and none of us are, so of course it doesn't work like that. But that's the design. So to the degree we get close to that, marriage is awesome. To the degree we don't get that, it's not. So it's not that marriage in and of itself by design is bad. It's that we're so sinful we can't pull it off. And you might get really close to that, but you're linked to someone who is literally running in the opposite direction, taking all that energy you've put in and said, good, look what else I could add to it for themselves, right? Totally selfish person. So his plan is good for us. But the problem is we have to live according to his rules and his plan. And because we're sinful, it's incredibly difficult to do that because we're all selfish.
My takeaway is that God is the king, the creator, and he's infinitely powerful.
Yeah,
And that's, you think of what he did,
yeah.
and still capable of doing that and way more, and it's like,
Yeah.
and we're so tiny.
If you think about it, do you remember the video? You don't have to remember facts, but just you saw the visual imagery of these massive waves coming over and just wiping out continents and stuff, right? So here's God. Okay, Adam and Eve, here's what you're going to do. You're going to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, fill the world with image bearers. I'm giving you marriage. I'm giving you procreation. I'm giving you food. Go. Totally screw it up. And he finally is like, okay, I'm going to wipe out continents. I'm going to reshape the earth. Okay, now we're going to start over. Okay, now, Noah, I want you to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. To your point, he's going to get what he wants, and there's nothing we're going to do to stop him. We talk about him speaking stars into existence. He's a wiping out continent God. Maybe that's easier to get your head around. To speak stars is kind of ethereal or hard to get. If you've ever seen these massive disaster movies with the waves higher than the buildings coming in, that's God. Yeah, he's just going to come in and wipe out whatever he has to get what he wants done. He's not doing that this next time. He's not going to do it with water. Next time he's just going to burn it all up and go back to Eden on the new heavens and the new earth. Okay, now we have a world filled with image bearers. And I do think that's the point. The plan was originally to have an earth filled with image bearers who loved him, and he will have it in the new heavens and the new earth. It's just going to take 6,000 years to get to it, or 7,000 years to get to it. And he'll pull a few all the way along. And you get to the end, and you've got 7 or 8 billion people inhabiting the earth, and it's awesome. But he gets what he wants. Don't fight him, the undertow there. Go ahead.
I was thinking another takeaway is that believers should continue having children and think about whether they should have birth control. Like, I didn't know that when we were younger.
Right.
You know, and so we did use birth control, but I'm just thinking that might be something to look at. Like, I know some Christians, they have like 10 kids.
Right.
Big families, and others don't, but I'm just rethink, like, what should I have done differently?
I thought of that too. Yeah. I thought of that too. And I'm glad you said it, not me.
Yeah.
For me to say, we should have had 10 kids, and Brenda's over here beating me, you know. My point is, we all have the same Bible, and when we read that, do you read that and hear 2 kids is a good limit, stop? I don't read that. Now, you can say, no, but wait a minute, I can't have 10 kids, I couldn't afford it. You can afford whatever God equips you to afford. Is he going to bless you with that many kids and then say, well, that sucks to be you? I mean, what are you thinking? What were you doing? Come on, you know. No, he's not going to do that. I don't think that's how that works. I think We have people here that I don't think they're like doctors and lawyers that have 7, 8, 9 kids. I don't know how they make that work, but they do because God provides. We've watched Him provide for us in ways that it shouldn't work, but it does. So it goes back to conscience. I'm going to probably have Gary post some messages. I'm still debating on it. I actually sent him the thing saying, put these on YouTube, and I'm debating. Anyway, I was talking about obeying government. And I was listening to them again, and I was saying, you have to follow your conscience. Yes, of course, if they tell you to kill your neighbor, don't do that. It's obvious. But what if they tell you to do something that violates your conscience? Should you do that? Everybody should have only 2 kids. We're not talking abortion. We're just talking don't have more than that through, vasectomies and getting tubes tied. It's not immoral to have 2 kids. But you feel very strongly convicted that you should follow what this was saying and you should have 8 or 9. Should you follow your conscience? So, yeah, I think you should follow your conscience. But the conscience one is hard because it's not chapter and verse. It's more of a thing that's going on in here. And I know, we're all old enough, we can't go back and redo that stuff, but it is interesting to think about it at this point in life, to think, I don't know, maybe we should or shouldn't have, whatever, it's kind of too late, but go ahead.
God says, and you have dominion over the earth. And to me, that also includes that you have dominion over the decisions that you make. And so if you look at the situation, whether it's the health of the wife.
Mm-hmm. There would be an incredibly good reason to stop.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I think God has kind of given us that, you go by your conscience.
Yeah.
And what you think is best for your spouse.
Yep.
I don't think that's wrong.
No, I don't either. I think that's a great actual illustration of how we could, I'm with you. I agree completely. Go ahead.
Also, God is the one ultimately who allows women to conceive. I mean, you look at Hannah, and the Lord was the one who stopped her from
Having
conceiving until she cried out to Him and made that promise to give Samuel. So the Lord is really ultimately the one who controls whether you get pregnant or not.
I'm with you 100%
So I think
there
if
too.
you leave it up to God, He's the one, He
Yes.
gives you a child every year or 2, He knows that you can bear it,
Yeah.
You can handle it.
Yeah. There's a wisdom element of that is, you have a health condition that, and maybe there's wisdom in not or something. I mean, so I'm not saying, hey, everybody should have had 10 kids, shame on you. That's not at all where I was headed. I'm simply saying, I don't think we really even thought about it from that perspective. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't even in the factoring of what should we do here. It was, we got 3 bedrooms, we gotta quit. We're barely making the bills now, we can't have any more. Or, I'm not doing this again. Or whatever that was that caused that to stop. It wasn't, does this fit with Genesis 1 and Genesis 9? That wasn't factored. That's just interesting to me to think through that now. Go ahead.
Just thinking more about removing God over all these decades. So removing God from tearing down the fabric of family. How it's led to wrong thinking. Going back to the command or the charge from God saying,
Go ahead.
multiply, fill,
Yeah.
Just the fabric of the family, how it's so screwed up right now.
Yeah.
Or has been screwed up for quite a while.
I was gonna cut off at 5 till, so sorry, you're gonna get an extra 5 here. was my main takeaway. I just wanted to talk through this real quick. Why am I talking through this? This is my main takeaway, maybe in part because of the thing that happened this week. I had sent a video to several people. It was a sheriff down at Middletown, Ohio, Butler County, I think. My aunts lived in Middletown growing up. It's this little town. It's like Bluffton or something. It's not a big place. He was at an FBI briefing, and they're telling the sheriffs, be prepared because there's likely going to be major terrorist events in the country. There's a lot more chatter right now than there was before 9/11. They believe that there are like all kinds of stuff going on. So, and he's saying, you guys need to know what I need to know, you know, and he was referring back to October 7th in Israel and what happened there. And if that happens here, what are you going to do to protect yourself? You know, we can't be everywhere. And they're telling us you're going to be on your own because we're going to be busy doing other stuff. We're sending the military. Sheriffs, you're going to have to step up. This is why they were having the meeting. This was with the FBI director. So that's in my mind, and I'm going through this, and I see this section about, this is, human life is precious because it's made in God's image, and we should do all that we can to protect it. It's so precious that if someone takes a life, we have to end their life, which is made in the image of God. That's like the most extreme thing we can do. That's how big a deal it is. So then with that as your backdrop, what do you do to protect the life? If ending one is worth dying over, then what do we do to save them? We do everything we can to protect it. And then I said that includes, and I'll give you 3. That includes accepting an insult to prevent escalating situation. What am I saying? I was at a guy's house this week, and it's this thing called Neighbor Wars or something. It was on some, and I'd never heard of the show, but apparently it's a show, and it's a show about people who are at battle with their neighbors. Stupid idea of a show, but these people are in the show, and I'm trying to talk to him, and it's on in the background. And I'm trying not to watch, but it's like, what in the world? Anyway, it's all pride. He said, blah, 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 I'm going to show, and then it just keeps escalating and escalating and escalating. In the most armed society on earth, that seems unwise, right? If someone is insulting or being demeaning, should you just turn the other cheek, right? As Jesus says. By the way, if you've not seen that passage lately, let me show you this. But I say to you, do not resist one who is evil, but if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, now think about this. This is my right cheek. Reach your hand out like you're going to punch me, like this. Where are you going to hit? Right here. Most people are right-handed. You're going to hit me right here. That's my left. How would you hit me on the right cheek? He's not talking to left-handed people. He's describing this. If I go up to Phil and I backhand him with a smack, that's not punching him, that's insulting. You. What am I doing? I'm insulting him. If it's not what he meant, he wouldn't say right cheek. He would say, if anyone slaps you on your cheek, turn to them the other. But he's saying right cheek. Why? Because he's making sure you get this. This is an insult. If you're insulted, well, give him the other one then. Let him keep insulting you. Don't rise to that. That's what I think. Accept the insult. Prevent the escalation. That's all about swallowing pride. That could save a life. Right? Road rage, this type of stuff. Put yourself in danger to save others' lives. We've all heard those stories, right? There's a guy named Dawson Trotman. He founded the Navigators, famous for evangelism, and he was up at Scroon Lake as a Bible center up there, and some people were drowning, and he goes swimming out, gets one, brings them back, saves them, swims back out, and drowned. trying to rescue the second one. Do we all think, well, what an idiot? No, we're all thinking, what an incredible human being to try so hard to save the life. It could be that, but it can also be someone is attacking someone and you step into that to try to stop that action. That would be an example. And then this last one, and this is where I'm tying it back to the sheriff. Using lethal force to stop someone from being murdered. Is it okay for a Christian to use lethal force in self-defense or if someone's coming into your home? And I'm just going to say, this is not thus saith the Lord, because I can't find an exact verse, but I can give you some that seem pretty strong. I think that is absolutely appropriate. Here's my point. You really do need to think that through now and not when the guy's supposed to through the front door. That's not the time to figure that out. You have to have already figured that out. And it is something to actually stop and think through. I mean, is it something that I should just not? I don't want to kill this person. I think that through. Because you may, hopefully you won't, but you may have to make that decision. And if you have to, you need to have already made it. I did some security for a while, and I had to really stop over a period of a week or two and really stop and think through that. And it was interesting to actually stop and think about it rather than just all the banter and the bravado and all the, yeah. Shut up, stop, think about this. You're gonna actually end someone's life. Is that okay with you? I have a feeling I would be ruined for the rest of my life, probably emotionally. I don't know that I could handle that. So that's where I'm at. I think that's what it would happen to me. But my answer is yes, I would do that. Because she's worth me being ruined for the rest of my life, right? I'm not gonna not do that and then she gets killed or one of my kids gets killed. No, if it destroys me emotionally, I'll do that because their life is worth protecting. That's what this is talking about. How am I drawing that from what we just looked at? I'm seeing that, and I'll end on this. If someone killing someone means God says they have to die, for me to kill them and then somebody else lives, to me that just totally makes sense. I have never made that connection until I studied this section this week. According to Genesis 9, they should die if they do that murder. Therefore, if they die as they're trying to, a life was legitimately saved because theirs needed to end anyway. The last thing, I just remembered I did have this. This is from Exodus 22, and it's a good way of illustrating what we're talking about right here at the end. If a thief is found breaking in and struck so that he dies, there shall be no blood guilt for him. You're not guilty of murder if you strike a thief who's trying to break in and steal. But then it says this, but if the sun has risen on him, there shall be blood guilt. You can't kill the thief who's breaking in the daytime. Why? Because you know he's a thief. He's just there to steal your stuff. Your stuff's not worth him dying over. It's just stuff. But if he's coming in the middle of the night, you don't know what's going on. Is he here to kill us? Is he here to what? If you strike him in the dark, that's okay. Because this could be a murderer. But if, modern day, you walk in and the guy's got your TV, don't start shooting. Open the door, get out of the way, let him get out. Call the police, you know what I mean? That goes back to my first thing. Accept the insult to prevent escalating. What I'm talking about is if someone is trying to kill someone, then yes, lethal force would be appropriate. Otherwise, that verse really doesn't make sense. So let me pray. We're long, sorry about that. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the morning. Thank you for your word. Even something like this section here in Genesis 9 and how practical it is for the days in which we live and how it is encouraging to us to be reminded that you are steadfast in your determination to accomplish your goal. You will have your way, and that our lives are enormously valuable, and so are the lives of others. Lord, I pray that you would help us to live lives that point others to you, and it would bring us back again in weeks to come to continue to see what you have for us. And we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.